So you'd think with a name like the Forgotten Realms, this campaign setting would be light on history, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Ed Greenwood, creator of the Forgotten Realms, has written containers worth of lore about the Forgotten Realms, most of which have never seen the light of day. The lore is so vast that there's a whole book dedicated to just giving you the cliff notes of the most significant millennia.
Relax, take it easy.
I'm not going to be making this video an hour long because frankly neither you nor I have the patience for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
In this video, I'll just give you the breakdown, the essentials, the most dramatic stuff, the cataclysmic world-defining events that made the Forgotten Realms into the setting you know from your D&D adventures, Baldur's Gate 3 or the D&D movie. Right now, the year in the Forgotten Realms is about 1492 DR. Our story starts a bit earlier than that, however, because the first major historical event recorded in the Forgotten Realms happens way back around minus 35,000 DR. And it's called the Days of Thunder. Some long days, admittedly, as these Days of Thunder last for about 5,000 years. But first, what's a DR? Is it shorthand for doctor? Does everyone in the Forgotten Realms measure their history in doctors? Or is it short for Danmarks Radio, the treasured national radio of Denmark where I happen to be from? Neither, actually. DR stands for Dale Reckoning, and that's Dale Reckoning, not Dale's Reckoning, though it'd be cool if everyone just decided that some guy named Dale got to reckon what year it was. Anyway, it basically refers to the timeline that humans and elves living around Cormyr and the Dalelands use, and it marks this little friendship pact they made back in 1DR. No baby Jesuses or anything, just a bunch of elves and humans shaking hands and building monuments out in the forest somewhere. Anyway, back to the Days of Thunder. It's negative 35,000 DR, and the last ice age has just ended. All of the continents form a single supercontinent, Meroruboros. Yeah, you try and say that 3 times fast. This is way before elves, dwarves, and orcs, so before Tolkien, basically, and was instead the time of the creator races. So who are the creator races? Well, really quickly, we have Saruk, who are reptilian sauroids that'll end up creating Yuan-Ti lizard folk and other such scaly creatures. Then we have the Batrachi, which are amphibious and the origins of Bullywugs, Kutoa, and other slimy creatures. There's the Arari, which are feathered, and the origins of Arakokra, Kenku, and other flying creatures. And there's also the Fae, which are, well, Fae creatures that reside in the otherworldly realm of Fairy, or what's also known past 4th edition as the Feywild, and who created the sprites and pixies. Finally, there are also humans, because, of course, humans have to be in the mix. Granted, humans are primitive, ape-like, cave-dwelling creatures at this point, but we're there, so suck on that, orcs. So basically, these creator races spent a few millennia mucking about, creating other races, forming huge empires, destroying said empires, and so on. Eventually, in a huge event known as the Tearfall, a comet or meteor smashes into the world and creates a huge sea known as the Sea of Fallen Stars. The comet also brings about climate change, and in the following years, tens of thousands of dragon eggs begin hatching across the planet. And that, my friends, ushers in the Dawn Ages, or what is also known as the Time of Dragons and the Time of Giants. It's a 6,000-year-long period where dragons rule most of the earth, fighting amongst themselves for dominion, while giants rise up to control realms of their own, and giants and dragons wage earth-shattering wars against each other. It's the conflict that lays the basis for adventures such as Storm King's Thunder, and it's kind of a big deal, not just for the size of the combatants involved. The end of this period is partly brought about by the Rage of Dragons, which is a madness that drives dragons across Abir to mindlessly destroy everything around them, including their own offspring. And that brings us to the next grand period, the First Flowering. And that's not this semi-inappropriate title for a coming-of-age story, or well, in some ways it probably maybe is. Anyway, it's where the elves really make themselves known. From minus 24,000 DR to minus 12,000 DR, elves move from the footnotes into the front pages and start making an impact. One of these impacts happened around negative 17,500 DR and is called the Sundering. Here the elves basically cast a really powerful spell that split the mega continent apart and made it into several continents, the most prominent of which is known as Faerun, which is basically where every book, game or movie you've ever seen about the Forgotten Realms takes place. The elves' reign of about 12,000 years might seem like a lot to you, but to the long-lived elves that's barely like 15 generations. Granted, the elves seem to enjoy themselves most of the time, building and blossoming and flowering, whatever the hell that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It's
Gets
gross.
the people going.
And not doing too much of that blood and war stuff there's already been a lot of. Or so you thought. For in minus 12,000 DR, a tree 1,000 years long conflict known as the Crown Wars begin. It's elf on elf now, with whole kingdoms going at each other. At the heart of these wars are the Eventyr, or Dark Elves, as we'd call them now, who in minus 10,000 DR end up being transformed into the Drow. The elven gods curse these warlike Dark Elves so they can't bear the touch of sunlight, forcing them to flee into the Underdark, the vast caves and tunnels that lies underneath the surface of Faerun, to live forever in darkness. By the end of the Crown Wars, the elves are decimated, which leaves rooms for humans to start building civilizations, and that they do, during what is known as the Founding Time, which lasts from minus 9,000 DR to minus 3,000 DR, and then ushers in the Age of Humanity, which lasts from minus 3,000 DR to 1,000 DR. Alright, so that was what, 30,000 something years in a few minutes, but now we're really finally at the juicy stuff. Because with the creator races, the dragons, the giants, and the elves in the rearview mirror, it's finally time for humans to shine, and boy do they shine and make a big mess out of everything, of course. Obviously, there's a lot of petty strife and smaller wars as human realms rise and fall, but if there's one thing that's worth zooming in on in this period, it's the Netherese Empire. It's an empire led by wizards flying around in cities that are inverted mountaintops fueled by huge magical artifacts known as mythala. That's too cool to not spend just a little time on. Basically, they ruled over large swaths of territory and were ruthless in their hunt for knowledge and power. Eventually, in minus 339 DR, after decades of war with magic-eating aberrations known as Faerun, Karsus, a mighty Netherese wizard, tried casting a spell that would basically make him the god of magic. Arrogant much, said the actual goddess of magic, but the spell sorta kinda worked, but it basically also broke the weave of magic, which is where all arcane magic comes from. The goddess of magic sacrificed herself to save the weave of magic, and long story short, there was a brief moment there where magic didn't work, like at all. Big deal, you might say, if it's just for a little bit. Well, that's easy to say when your whole empire isn't flying around in magic-fueled mountaintops. Boom, crash, and just like that, no more Netherese Empire. But life goes on, as they say, and everybody soon forgot about the Netherese and their flying enclaves. So another millennia and a half passes without any world-destroying events, or at least not too many world-destroying events, and that's where we get to what is called the present age, the time period that has been featured in most of the Dungeons & Dragons media you've seen. This is the period between roughly 1350 DR and 1500 DR, and is what I'll cover in the next video. And we'll be starting with something ominously called the Time of Trouble, so you know that's going to be exciting. But whatever are you going to do with yourself until then? Well, you're gonna click a link somewhere underneath this video that'll take you to Wanderer's Guide to Enchanted EMPORIUMS, which is our newest book and Kickstarter campaign, where you'll be able to pledge for all sorts of awesome stuff for your 5e game, including rules for crafting and trading, a bunch of ready-to-play magic shops and merchant NPCs that'll trade cool loot with the player characters, whole ass marketplaces, and of course more magic items than you can shake an immovable rod at. Don't wait, because the campaign ends soon, but don't worry, if you're watching this in the future, you can probably grab the book from our web shop, so you just go do that instead. Alright? And with that out of the way, there's not a whole lot left to say except thank you so much for watching, and I hope that I'll see you in the next video.